So I wanted to take a few minutes with this video to talk about 3 interesting PlayStation 5 stories, and if you could hit that like button on the video, thank you to those that do it, and as always, it's very much appreciated. Now, the stories I wanted to dive into today includes a big change at Sony. Sony buying Take-Two and Square Enix is back again after the Activision FTC situation. We're going to talk about that for a sec there. And did Sony just lock up multiple new studios? First, yes or no, do you care about Microsoft owning Activision or not? For me, it's yes, as you guys already know. When they bought Bethesda, I said that was huge, but they needed to compete, so let them have Bethesda and let's compete. Let them make games and go head to head with Sony. Activision is a whole other ball game. As I've said before, I'm not a fan of anyone owning Call of Duty, but that's just personally me. What about you guys? So comment below yes or no if you care that Microsoft is going to own Activision or not. Let me know down in the comments below. Now, diving into the first story of the video, a big change at Sony. Reading from Push Square, Naughty Dog co-president Evan Wells has announced that he will be retiring from the developer after 25 years. Confirmed in a statement, he leaves Neil Druckmann as the sole president of the company, along with the studio leadership, who Wells believes will steer the studio into a successful future. He'll leave Naughty Dog at the end of this year. Wells goes on to state that while it'll be hard for him not to see current Naughty Dog projects through to completion, he believes the developer has never had a stronger team in place to ensure that we will deliver them in a way that will set industry standards and exceed all expectations. In a separate post, Neil Druckmann says he will remain as co-head of the studio through until Evan Wells leaves, and will also be head of creative so that I will be able to invest in the future of our projects, creative vision, and overall business strategy. So this is definitely a huge change for Naughty Dog, and of course thanks to Evan Wells for all that he's done for over the last 25 years. Jack and Daxter, Uncharted, Last of Us are some of my favorite games ever made. I hope the best for him in his retirement. Enjoy your time. You've done great work. Now, for us, looking at the future of Naughty Dog, the multiple projects that's mentioned here, we know Factions 2 is there. I hope it's still there going. We know that they have a story-focused narrative title in the works, as they recently confirmed. And most recently, we heard a rumor that they're starting to work on Last of Us 3. If that is the case, potentially, Naughty Dog could be working on a new IP, Factions 2, and Last of Us Part 3. Factions 2, I would hope, releases first, then this new IP, which has probably been in the works for 2 years plus at this point, and Last of Us 3 would probably release after that, if it is in the works, of course, probably not far away from whatever season the show is on at the point when it's ready to release. I wonder what this new IP is, though. That's the one I'm really curious about. Is it a sci-fi like title like Savage Starlight that we've heard about in I think it was Uncharted or the Last of Us universe? One of them has Savage Starlight mentioned in there, the comic book. I personally hope their next title is a sci-fi title. Naughty Dog making a sci-fi title sounds very exciting to me. Now, diving into the second story of the video, did Sony just lock up multiple new studios? So, we've kept hearing murmurs in the background about Sony acquiring several studios like Ballistic Moon or publishers like Square Enix. Apparently, there could be another 2 to add to this list, and I'm talking about it because these 2 really kind of make sense in my opinion. Recently, Rhythian, who according to him has leaked out several things, including the Bungie buyout, his followers seem to support it, but focusing on what he said, he mentioned a tease as to what Sony's next studio buyout could be. As for what he said, he put out a tweet recently that said, "Pilgrim, do you read me? This is Dr. Tyson and Dr. Moon come back." He had the hashtags PlayStation Studios acquisition season. Now in the comments, people named multiple studios, and Rhythian quote retweeted his own tweet and said, "One answer has been right in the comments." The one I see that he liked himself was Impulse Gear, which are the developers of Farpoint, one of my favorite PlayStation VR 1 titles. I hope this means Farpoint 2 is in the works. I really hope that's what this means. But that's one of the studios. Moving on to the next studio, which also makes sense, we go to Tidix. He's gotten things right and wrong in the past, and honestly, he's kind of been quiet for a while when it comes to leaks, but he quote tweeted one of his own tweets from 2021, 2 years ago, with an eyes emoji on the caption. The 2021 tweet states, states PlayStation is actively looking to get a studio in Sweden. A lot of potential and incredible devs here. With Tidex, he doesn't mention if anyone got anything right, but the guesses seem to be landing on Arrowhead Games, the people behind Helldivers 1 and 2. This one is another one that makes sense. Like I said before, Helldivers 1 people enjoyed and still play to this day. Helldivers 2 looks to take what made 1 great and elevate that to the next level. This studio is pretty much going through what Housemarque went through for Returnal, going from arcade type titles to AAA. These are both small studios, but they're studios that have made good titles in the past for Sony. The more surprising one out of these two is Impulse Gear and Sony buying a VR dedicated studio. That's the one that's surprising. Curious to see when these studio buyouts get announced, if they're happening. I'll keep tabs on that, of course, so subscribe if you're curious as well. But you guys let me know if you've played Farpoint or Helldivers 1 or not. Let me know down in the comments below. And now diving into the final story of the video, the FTC Microsoft win and Sony buying Take-Two and Square Enix. Now, obviously, I'm not going to dive into the whole FTC situation, but basically the judge ruled in favor of Microsoft for the Activision buyout. There's still an appeal that could happen by Wednesday, but it's pretty much looking like a done deal in the US for Microsoft here. In terms of the fan reception, people have started to mention Sony's response, and this brings us to Take-Two and Square Enix. Square Enix has pretty much been closely tied with Sony at this point, and we had people like Kind of Funny's Greg Miller last year who heard from multiple sources that Sony is acquiring Square Enix, and they were going to announce it last year, but that didn't happen. Many have guessed that Sony held this back until the Activision situation was sorted out, and if all goes well for Microsoft this week, it's looking like a done deal there. So if Sony is acquiring Square Enix, then we could potentially hear something on this soon, unless this Activision situation, of course, drags out even more into the year. The second one that I've seen mentioned a lot is Take-Two, the owners of Rockstar Games, of course. We've heard murmurs of Sony acquiring Take-Two in the past, and I've said this in the past that you can acquire companies not only by cash straight, where Sony did have $44 billion in cash on hand in 2021, so they could have acquired them then. Right now, it sits at about $14 billion because obviously they've been spending money over the last few years. You can also buy companies by shares in Sony alongside cash and potentially paying them later or partnering up with someone else to finance the deal. Sony could also figure out a way to do it like how Disney did with Fox, where they bought them for $71 billion, but of course they didn't have that cash ready on hand. They had financing deals, partners, and stuff like that to be able to acquire Fox. If the Activision deal wasn't happening, I wouldn't want Sony to buy Take-Two. None of the big three should own Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto. Those are multi-platform generational titles. They should just be like that. No one should own them, but here it is what it is. This is the statement. This is the point we're at. And at this point, I'm wondering what other options does Sony have other than play the game as well. I will say out of these two, Square Enix seems pretty much likely at this point. But you guys let me know if you want Sony to buy Take-Two or not. Let me know down in the comments below. And if you guys did enjoy this video, please hit that like button. As it always helps, and subscribe if you're new. I got new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And now I'll check you guys out on the next one. And welcome back to the after show. This is the part of the video where we have a little fun down in the comments below. If you're old, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. For today's thing, what I want you guys to do is the body, obliterate, destroy, and overall harass the comment section with the buyout wars continue. Obviously, this is in relation to Activision getting bought out and Sony potentially buying Square Enix, Arrowhead Games, Impulse Gear. If you're excited to see what Sony buys next, destroy the comment section with the buyout wars continue. And I'll definitely heart those comments like I always do because I appreciate everybody who stays to the end of my videos. And now I'll check you guys out on the next one.